Yes, my people, it's Rockstar 860, and once again, I'm here to talk about the Vybz Kartel co-accused Court of Appeals hearing to see if it be a retrial or an acquittal of the men. Today is Friday, the last day of hearings, arguments from the prosecution, the excuse me, the defense. And I believe the judge will give her closing arguments the 18th. That's Tuesday. So I believe the judge will give closing arguments starting on Monday and then again on Tuesday. But the media of Jamaica is just saying it's closing arguments, and people are wondering who the closing arguments will be from. Whether it's the prosecution continuing. I don't know if they finished today. So we'll have to see on Monday onto Tuesday who is doing the arguments, the closing arguments. But I believe it's the justices, the Judge McDonald's. The lead judge will be giving her arguments about the hearings and what proceeded this week between the DPP and the defense, being the team of Vybz Kartel, Sean Storm, Kerry Jones, and Andre St. John. So I listened to what going on in the court today, and I do a recap over the weekend for day 4 and day 5, but this is just a little synopsis to what went on in court today. So just listen. Yeah.
Director of Public Prosecutions has asked the Court of Appeal to order a retrial for Vybz Kartel and his co-accused, despite conceding that the constitutional rights of the men are likely to be breached as a result of such an order. The prosecution made the concession as it closed 2 days of arguments before the appellate court. The matter is being heard by Justices Marva MacDonald Bishop, Paulette Williams, and David Fraser. Nora Gay Banton reports.
It wasn't the first time the prosecution was conceding that the men's right to a fair trial in a reasonable time would be breached by an order for a retrial. But this time, the team from the DPP's office acknowledged that the concession was a hurdle to the retrial order they were seeking from the Court of Appeal. Prosecutor Lorianne Tugwell acknowledged the difficulty the prosecution faced soon after getting to her feet. Justice MacDonald Bishop commended Tugwell for her frank admission, pointing out that the prosecution needed to prove to the court that the acknowledged breach of the men's constitutional rights was justified under the Charter of Rights. The justice noted the prosecution would need to prove the justification with evidence. Justice MacDonald Bishop pointed out that the clock started ticking on the men having a fair trial in a reasonable time after they were charged in 2011. She said it would be incorrect to believe the starting point was March 2024 when the Privy Council overturned their convictions. In response, Prosecutor Tugwell noted that acquittal of the case should be seen by the Court of Appeal as a last resort option. She said dismissing the case should only be an option in exceptional circumstances where a fair trial was completely out of the question. The prosecution maintains that a fair trial for Kartel and his co-accused was still a strong possibility if the case is sent back for a retrial. During the morning session of Friday's hearing, Prosecutor Jeanette Forbes told the 3-judge panel that sufficient safeguards existed to manage any risks that pretrial publicity may cause. Forbes urged the Court of Appeal to trust that an impaneled jury would take their oath seriously and not be unduly influenced. He says, despite the high publicity in the case, the judges should look at other high-profile matters in coming to their decision. Forbes highlighted the U.S. case of Bill Cosby and the South African case of Oscar Pistorius. Forbes said judges allowed the cases to proceed amid heightened publicity because of the interest of justice. Justice MacDonald Bishop appeared unconvinced by the comparisons, pointing out that each case had to be judged on its own merit. In closing the prosecution's case, Tugwell told the court that it was because prosecutors cared about Kartel and his co-accused why they wanted the case tried on its merit and not simply dismissed on a technicality. Final arguments in the case are set for Tuesday morning. It's unclear when the Court of Appeal will deliver its ruling. Noriega.
So yes, my people, we see what's going on. I mean, this hearing is down to the last. This is the last leg of the race here, and the prosecution, the DPP, is not faring so well. Know what I mean? Isaac and John Clark and the defense put on a lot of pressure on them and the justice system, which you see Justice McDonald is taken very seriously. So, I mean, let's wait till June 18th to see what happens. But wait for my recap. You know what I mean? I'm out.
Vybz Kartel remains behind bars in Jamaica after his murder conviction was overturned earlier this year. A judge was expected to rule on his possible release today, but court was adjourned until next week without a decision.
All right, Fox 5's Lisa Evers joins us live in studio with what his lawyer has to say about these latest developments. Lisa.
Well, Stephen, Natasha, his attorney tells me they had hoped for some resolution by today, but that did not happen. It's been a roller coaster ride for dancehall music superstar Vybz Kartel. The murder conviction that has kept him behind bars for nearly 13 years was overturned in March, yet he is still not free, even though he's not charged with any crime. Now he will have to wait even longer to learn his fate. This week, attorney Isaac Buchanan took his fight for Adidja Vybz Kartel Palmer's human rights to Jamaica's Court of Appeal. Even though the conviction was thrown out, the British Privy Council gave the Jamaican court the chance to decide on a retrial or outright acquittal, meaning there would be no further prosecution. Attorney Buchanan once again had to argue for his client's freedom before Justice Marvin McDonald Bishop, who kept the focus on constitutional issues.
They did admit that there were breaches of Mr. Palmer's and his co-defendants' constitutional rights. They attempted to justify the breach, and we received an additional date for next week, Tuesday.
This means the nightmare of imprisonment in what Mr. Buchanan calls a brick oven is still not over for the physically ailing performer. None other than Britain's King Charles signed the order to overturn the conviction in March, but Kartel and his 3 co-accused remain incarcerated in harsh conditions. For Kartel, it's not just his freedom that's at stake, it's his very life that's on the line as he battles heart failure and Graves' disease. It's been an ordeal for his family, says his eldest son, whose dad has been incarcerated for more than half his life.
Yes, it is very frightening, but the best thing we can do is just pray and be strong, you know?
Attorney Buchanan says he anticipated the arguments by the prosecution and was encouraged by the judge's emphasis on the realities of any further delays in the matter and their unwanted consequences.
The issue that's before the court did make it clear that it has never traversed this matter so intense and the nature of the investigation or the exercise that they're carrying out. So we're in new territory in terms of how we are treating with the idea of a retrial.
Now, Attorney Buchanan says the decision could come next Tuesday about what the future holds for Kartel and his 3 co-defendants. He said that any questions about the seriousness of Kartel's health issues was put to rest by his doctor, Dr. Karen Phillips, who was emphatic about the risks he's now facing every day just to stay alive.